all you digital wizards out there, it's been a while, and I'm itching to jump into a new subject. In this case, we will be learning a bit of Scratch. Now, coding is not the easiest thing for me. In fact, it is monstrously hard for me to understand with my dyslexia. But I've never been one to shy away from a challenge, so I dove into Scratch. Now, one of the first things I learned how to do was make a character move. Much of this was strange to me because it was like learning a new language and way of speaking. Only in this case, it was because I was trying to speak with a computer. Okay, not just speak, but give it orders. Only if I said anything just a little bit wrong, the computer didn't want anything to do with me. Now, due to my dyslexia, I often skip letters, words, or sometimes even whole sentences when reading or writing. It is not unusual for me to read something 3 or 4 times and still miss something. So, as I am sure you can tell, I was super confident going into this. Thankfully, Scratch works in blocks, making this challenge easier for me. I didn't have to type my code letter by letter. It took me about 3 tutorials to realize that events started a piece of code, and probably another 3 weeks before I felt able to make this video. So, novice I may be, I ask for some patience as you join me on this journey to digital mastery. The first thing I would like to do is bring in my sprite background that I plan to use later as a scrolling background. I do this by going down to the little cat icon and uploading my sprite. Once my sprite is in, I would rename it if needed. I then want to jump over to costumes and convert my image to vector before resizing it to fit my screen. After I've completed this step, I go back to my cat icon and upload another sprite. This time I bring in my character sprite sheet that I made in pixel art. One of the things you will notice is that the sprite sheet comes in as several character costumes. Though it is fun to see them march in this little formation, it is not so great for coding. So to fix that, I jump over to costumes and duplicate the sprite 3 times for the 3 costumes. I make sure to name each costume after the different poses before starting the process of separating these guys with the selection tool. If you don't see the selection tool, you might need to convert your image. I have my character costumes separated. However, their placement is largely apart. To fix this, I simply snap each costume to the center of the screen. Now, there are ways to have this character animate using the costumes, however, I have not been able to figure out how to get the scrolling background to work along with the animated characters. If anyone figures it out, give me a shout out in the comments. Now, you can make each of these costumes larger in the editor, however, you do risk them becoming disproportional to each other. So instead, I recommend changing the size of the sprite, not the costume, by going to the size section in sprites. Now that the costumes have been completed and resized, I can start coding my sprite. So one of the first things that we want to do is set the position of our sprites for the start of the game. To do this, we need to give a shout out to the computer to pay attention. In this case, we are saying when the flag is clicked or when the game starts, go here. So while our game character is selected, we are going to go to events and pull in when green flag is clicked. We then select our backdrop sprite and add the same event in when green flag is clicked. We are now going to set our character and background position. Before we do this, you will want to make sure that you place your background and character exactly where you want them. We are then going to finish up our sentence by going to the Motion tab and bringing in the Set X and Y block. What this does is take the sprite's last known location and lets the computer know you want this sprite to start here every time the game starts. We complete this step for both the background and character sprite. You can then test this code by moving your 2 sprites and clicking the flag to see if they return to where they started. Now that we have their positions marked, we can finally code our character to move. To do that, we are going to select our character sprite and bring in a new event that shouts, when space key is pressed. Now the space part of that is interchangeable, which is what we would like to do. because soon we will be replacing that space key with our directional arrows. In fact, we are going to do this 3 times, so you might as well bring that code in 3 times. We then want to swap space to right arrow, left arrow, and up arrow for our directions. You can of course do a different key setup if you prefer, but this is the one I like. Now, if I go back to costumes, you will notice that he only has a right walk. To remedy this, I simply duplicate my character's costume, flip it, and name it left walk. I then want my keys to switch to the correct costume when pressed. So I go to the Looks tab and find the block Switch Costume 2, and add this block to the right and left directional blocks. I then want to switch the costume to the corresponding key. For example, right arrow should switch the costume to right walk. Left arrow should switch the costume to left walk. And test. The looks of this are working now, so it's time to get this little guy to walk. To do that, I need to grab a movement block. I go to the movement tab and I add the move 10 steps block. Now keep in mind that this block is pretty much the same as the change X block because movement from left to right is always considered to be on the X axis, and movement that does up and down on a flat surface is considered the Y. So later we will be using Y for our jump, but for now the step block will suffice. We are going to add that step block to both our right and left directional blocks. However, when we first plug this in, both right and left are coded to go right. This is because positive is considered to be one direction and negative is considered to be the other. So in order to have this move in the opposite direction when left arrow is clicked, we have to change the 10 to be -10. And test. Lastly, we have to give our character the ability to jump out of danger. So unlike our left and our right, our jump needs to not only go up, but come back down. To do this, we need to add some controls. So we go to the Control tab and bring in 2 repeats. We then go back up to Motion and add the change Y by block to both repeat sections. Much like our X direction, the positive and negative are considered to be opposite directions. So when we jump, we want it first to go up, +10, and then come back down, -10. Now, test. Some of you might have noticed that even though our character is jumping, his costume is not changing. To code this, we need to add a look block that says Switch Costume. We're going to add this block to both repeat sections and set the costume to switch to jumping and then resting as it comes down. And test. Now, he's jumping and changing costumes, but currently he is jumping straight up and down. I want him to move a bit forward as he jumps, which would require me to add a change X by block from the movement tab. I'm going to add this only to the first repeat, and I'm going to lower the length of the jump by half and type 5. So that's it. If you want to test these methods out or even add more movements than the set I've talked about, I would love to see your work down in the comments. As always, keep it magical out there.